Hello and welcome to today's reading lesson. We're going to go a little bit off topic today. We're not going to continue with our skill of inferencing. Rather, we're going to focus on a different learning objective, which is to innovate. So, innovation means that we're going to improve something either with a new idea or we're going to produce a new product in a new and better way. Okay, so I know you've heard about that word innovate before. We've done it a lot in our writing when we had to come up with our own ideas for our recounts or our newspaper reports, our non chronological reports, and all of those ones. But this time we're going to innovate in our reading and we're going to come up with a new product. You'll understand what I mean as we continue the story today. So, as you can remember from yesterday, Charlie was sitting on his grandparents' bed and he was listening to a story about Willy Wonka and his chocolate factory. Okay, and that is where we left off. And Grandpa Joe had told him it was the most amazing chocolate factory in the world, and Mr. Willy Wonka was an extraordinary chocolate maker. Okay, so Grandpa Joe was the oldest of the four grandparents. He was 96 and a half, and that is just about as old as anybody can be. Like all extremely old people, he was delicate and weak. And throughout the day, he spoke very little. Now, the word delicate here means he was quite fragile. He was quite, something delicate is something that's easily breakable. Remember that they were really thin. They didn't have a lot of food to eat. So that made him really delicate, really fragile, really weak. Okay? But in the evenings, when Charlie, his beloved grandson, was in the room, he seemed in some marvelous way to grow quite young again. All his tiredness fell away from him, and he became as eager and excited as a young boy. So, here the word eager means you're really excited for something, you're looking forward to something, um, and that is what eager means. It's basically a synonym for excited. You're really looking forward to something, okay? Oh, what a man he is, this Mr. Willy Wonka, cried Grandpa Joe. Did you know, for example, that he has himself invented more than 200 new kinds of chocolate bars, each with a different center, each far sweeter and creamier and more delicious than anything the other chocolate factories can make. Okay, you might have an idea of what I'm going to ask you to do today, but let's keep reading. Perfectly true, cried Grandma Josephine. And he sends them to all the four corners of the earth. Isn't that so, Grandpa Joe? It is, my dear, it is. And to all the kings and presidents of the world as well. But it isn't only chocolate bars that he makes. Oh, dear me, no. He has some really fantastic inventions up his sleeve, Mr. Willy Wonka has. Did you know that he's invented a way of making chocolate ice cream so that it stays cold for hours and hours without being in the refrigerator? You can even leave it lying in the sun all morning on a hot day and it won't go runny. Well, can you imagine that? I'm definitely quite shocked because anytime I take ice cream out of the freezer, it always melts. But Mr. Willy Wonka has come up with a way of making sure that even on the sunniest day, it doesn't go runny. But that's impossible, said little Charlie, staring at his grandfather. Of course it's impossible, cried Grandpa Joe. It's completely absurd. But Mr. Willy Wonka has done it. Quite right, the others agreed, nodding their heads. Mr. Wonka has done it. What do you think that word absurd means? Okay, remember they're talking about ice cream that never melts. What do you guys think about that? I mean, is that possible? Not in our world, no. So absurd means something that just simply cannot be true. It's strange, it's impossible, it's illogical, it just does not make sense. Okay? So Grandpa Joe is saying it's completely absurd, just another way of saying it's impossible, it's strange, no way. Okay? And then again, Grandpa Joe went on, speaking very slowly now so that Charlie wouldn't miss a word. Mr. Willy Wonka can make marshmallows that taste of violets and rich caramels that change color every 10 seconds as you suck them, and little feathery sweets that melt away deliriously the moment you put them between your lips. He can make chewing gum that never loses its taste, and sugar balloons that you can blow up to enormous sizes before you pop them with a pin and gobble them up. And by a most secret method, he can make lovely blue bird's eggs with black spots on them. And when you put one of these in your mouth, it gradually gets smaller and smaller until suddenly there is nothing left except a tiny little pink, sugary baby bird sitting on the tip of your tongue. Wow. So those are really some fascinating sweets and chocolates that he can make. Okay. Deliriously means quite excitedly, quite happily. Okay. When you're delirious, you're really excited and you're really happy about something. Okay. You're overcome with emotion. So he's saying that when you have these little feathery sweets, they melt away happily the moment you put them between your lips. Okay. It makes you really happy when you have these little feathery sweets. And we've heard this word gradually before. It means slowly over time. Okay, so these birds' eggs, you put them into your mouth, and then slowly over time, there's nothing left except a baby bird sitting on the tip of your tongue. Okay, now again, quite impossible, quite absurd, quite unbelievable that he can make chocolate that's like this. But as we know, it is a fiction story, and Mr. Willy Wonka is an amazing chocolate maker. So those are the different types of sweets that he has innovated. Okay. Grandpa Joe paused and ran the point of his tongue slowly over his lips. It makes my mouth water just thinking about it, he said. Mine too, said little Charlie, but please go on. While they were talking, Mr. and Mrs. Bucket, Charlie's mother and father, had come quietly into the room, and now both were standing just inside the door listening. Tell Charlie about that crazy Indian prince, said Grandma Josephine. He'd like to hear that. You mean Prince Pondicherry, said Grandpa Joe, and he began chuckling with laughter. Completely dotty, said Grandpa George. But very rich, said Grandma Georgina. What did he do? Asked Charlie eagerly. So here's that word again, eager, so excitedly. He really wants to know what's going to happen. Listen, said Grandpa Joe, and I'll tell you. Okay, so I've highlighted the word dotty as well, and that just means he's a little bit crazy, a little bit silly. Um, yeah, just like that. Okay, so completely dotty, completely crazy, completely silly, a little bit out of his mind. Okay, so your activity for today is, can you create a new type of sweet? So I would like you to innovate. Okay, and if I go back, innovate means to produce a product using a new and better way. So you are going to produce a sweet in a new and better way. For example, in the story we read about the sugar balloons that blow up to enormous sizes before popping, we read about ice cream that never melts. As you can see over here, here's ice cream that's melting, and here's ice cream that's not melting. Okay. We learned, now these are actually a real sweet. They're called gobstoppers, and they are from Willy Wonka. Okay. And if you suck on them, they change colors and they change flavors. So they go from red to green to orange to yellow to purple, and they just taste of different things. All right. Now, all of these are sweets that Mr. Willy Wonka has invented. Can you create a sweet that, would be a little bit strange, a little bit illogical, but completely possible in the story? Okay. And I would like you to create this sweet and bring it to our Friday celebration on Teams, because I'm sure that everyone would love to see all the different sweets that you and the different ideas that you have come up with. All right. So for your success criteria, can you create a new sweet? Can you then draw it? Can you label it? And can you describe it to me? All right. And I will show you what I mean by that. So here is what your assignment will look like on Teams. Okay, so here's your sweet design. Here's where you can upload a picture of your sweet. Okay, now again, no wrong answers here. Come up with whatever you would like to do, whatever you choose. What kind of sweet would you like to choose? Okay, it could be a chocolate, could be ice cream, could be chewing gum, could be anything. Then, what is your sweet called? What does your sweet taste like? And what happens when you eat your sweet? Now, again, as I keep saying, you're innovating, you're making it up, right? You could have a sweet maybe in the shape of an ice cream. And when you put it into your mouth, instead of melting and turning warm, it expands and it becomes cold and freezing in your mouth and it becomes really creamy. Okay. Or you could have a sweet maybe in the shape of a Coca-Cola bottle. And as soon as you put it into your mouth and you bite it, it's like you're drinking Coke. Okay. So all of those are different ideas. Those are two ideas that I have. What other ideas do you have? Okay. Now, once you have finished, you can upload it onto Teams. Okay. You can always just type your answers over here. That works. But your picture, you will have to upload. And then on Friday, we will share these with everyone. Okay, so I'm sure everyone would love to see your ideas. So make sure you bring them to the celebration assembly on Friday. Okay, but just to go back, remember, you're creating a new sweet, drawing it, labeling what happens when you eat it. What does it taste like? Okay, and here were the ideas from the story. Can you come up with your own ideas? All right. So have some fun. Really get creative with it. I would love to see all your different ideas. Okay, well done, year 3. We will continue the story tomorrow with our inferencing.